There's Jorge. Okay, we're recording.
Hey, good morning. I'm going to call the meeting to order for the Joint Budget and Executive Committee meeting. First up, I'm going to read the land acknowledgement, the SRJC land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that we gather at Santa Rosa Junior College on the territorial traditional land of the Pomo people in Santa Rosa and the Coast Miwok people in Petaluma, past and present, and honor with gratitude the land itself and the people who have stewarded it through the generations. Is there any public comment? Seeing no public comment, I'm going to move to approval of the.
Excuse me, Teresa, you were breaking up. Is it just me, or are others?
Just you.
Okay, I'm going to turn the headphones off and go back to.
You guys could hear me okay?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So I just did the public comment, Steve.
Yeah, no.
And I was moving to approve of the minutes. Did everybody get a chance to review the minutes?
I did. I will move
Okay.
approval of the minutes.
Is there a second?
There were those couple of small edits that you caught that I made.
Oh, okay. I'll point out that there were two. Kate's name was spelled, it was missing a letter, and Shirley's name wasn't capitalized, her last name. I think that was it, right? Right, Jay?
Yep.
Those are the only two edits to it, were just typographical, not substantive. So, so Steve, it's the first, I'm sorry, who was the second?
I'll second.
Shirley seconds. Okay. Any discussion? Any opposition? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Minutes are approved. And Dr. Chong is not here with us for his report. Are you going to report for him, Jay?
Hey, do you have any report from Dr. Chong? Or okay, that's fine. We can, because we can use the time. So we'll just go right into Kate. The one document that we did send out to you in advance were the statements, the June 30th statements. So Kate, do you want to just cover that briefly?
Yeah, I can cover those. So I think those are going to be the final statements. That's what we're presenting to the auditor. So I know it said tentative on it, but I think we're $1 difference in the final ones that we'll be presenting to the board next week. The major change on it, I mean, and I don't know that it's a surprise to anybody, but is the change in unrealized loss. We had a huge 6.36 million loss in or unrealized loss that we booked at year end. So our total assets actually decreased by about 5.8 million down to 77.8 million. Our liabilities did increase about 460,000. Mostly that's recognizing accounts payable for year end, and then we had some additional unearned income from the SRT ticket sales ahead of pre-sales. Deferred inflows, we have our year-end adjustments to the charitable remainder trust. So our deferred inflows from resources decreased actually this year by 711,000. Our income increased, recognized income increased 1.5 million. That was primarily for a Doyle contribution and scholarship contributions that we received. And then our expenditures increased by about 955,000, mostly in admin and other operating expenses. So the gist of it, we do have our auditors here next week for the next 2 weeks. So our next meeting will hopefully present final statements and move into the next year.
Questions there?
Slightly off topic, but just Kate mentioned SRT. I was curious whether how they did at the box office. I know that program's a bit on the bubble. Do you have any idea what their numbers ended up looking like this summer?
I haven't heard that yet. We've started to look into that. just because they are having a rough year and we have limited capacity in all of our events on campus. We still have limited capacity for COVID reasons. So we will be exploring that because we have been talking with them regularly.
Thanks.
Yeah, I just want to thank you and Whitney in particular for helping me and Adrian the last few days. I know it's, been the auditors arrived a week early, which has been a challenge, getting them documents when things weren't really complete yet. So, and then I apologize, I didn't get all the documents out to you in advance, but we'll be looking at those this morning. And then of course, I'll be sending them out today to the board. I'll be emailing out the agenda for the board meeting next week with all the materials that we're looking at today. So I will move into the year-to-date operating for the foundation through June 30th. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, do you see the budget?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
good.
Yes.
I have two screens. I just never know which one you're looking at. So you have in front of you now the year-to-date for the foundation through June 30th. So you look at the first column is what was approved for 21-22, and then the second column is the actual. So you'll see our endowment administrative fee. Basically we come in at what's budgeted because we know on June 30th what that number is. So there was a slight adjustment there, but we did slightly better on unrestricted gifts. I'm really happy with the President's Circle. I mean, we almost hit our goal this year. That number's been gradually creeping up, mostly because whenever we're talking to a donor about a large gift, we always include the President's Circle. We try to incorporate that so that they're supporting us there as well. Investment fund revenues, that was kind of the big gain. When we were selling, when we were making the transition to ESG strategy, there was some sale of stocks and there were some gains there. You'll see in a minute at the bottom half where there were some losses as well, but there was a revenue gain there. And then Lena Lafferty came in as budgeted. We had one planned gift this year where we assessed the 5% fee. In the future, that 5% will go into the new operating endowment, which we're going to talk about in a moment. The board approved the establishment of that at the May meeting. We are going to establish that now because we received that bequest that we were waiting for. And then there's nothing here for President's Address. There is $34,000 in the program fund, but it hasn't been transferred yet into the operations. That won't happen until FY23. It'll happen because it doesn't happen until after July 1st. So the actual transfer happens during 23. So you'll see some revenue in the near future in the FY23 budget. The other income that we budgeted was for the 3% fee. We didn't implement that this year, so we're not seeing any of that other income there. We have launched the 3% fee as of July 1st. We haven't made any of those assessments yet, but that's coming up very soon. So you'll see total revenue at 1.725 against the budgeted 1.470. Employee salaries, the improvement there was a combination of a couple of things. One, our community engagement coordinator who works with Brianne did not start till the end of November, whereas we had budgeted that for a July 1 start. We also had budgeted for our constituent relations coordinator who hasn't been hired yet. We had budgeted for half a year of that person's salary last year. So we had some savings there as well. And then on the kind of the supplies and materials and operations expenses, again, we really weren't, working in the office. We've just recently come back, so we weren't spending as much money as we normally would. So you'll see a lot of savings there. So overall, we did end up with a $590,000 surplus. But then when you look at that $553,000 investment loss, basically the surplus disappears. So this was a disappointment to me when I saw it because I really had wanted, and the board gave this a nod in May to transfer 50% of our surplus to the opportunity fund. because I think this might be the last year we'll have that opportunity. But it dissolved. We really don't have that opportunity now. So we're not going to be moving any money to the opportunity fund. And so we'll just leave that, because you'll see the 125,000 that we allocated to athletics for the scoreboard. I'm happy to say that scoreboard was installed. I got an email from Matt Markovich yesterday. It's up for the first home game, which is tomorrow. I'll show you an image of that later. So, and then we have this prepayment to the district, which we make every year. It's just, so there's, you know, a prepayment for salaries and such, for the accounting team to have on. So you'll see the fund balance is below, and then the ending unrestricted fund balance of 1,826. So no movement to the opportunity fund. We do still have, I met with Chris yesterday, we still do have some undesignated fund balance, as you'll see. We may come back to that at a future date. One of the things that I'm beginning to think about is, because I had hoped to move money to the opportunity fund and just hold on to it, because the student housing building opens in the fall of next year. And we really want that project to be successful. And there's a lot of, I'm getting a lot of calls and emails because my name's on some of the housing information. Students are calling me and emailing me. And the endowment we're building for rental subsidies, it's going well. I'll give you an update on that in a few minutes. But it's going to take a while for it to, you know, some of the donors have pledged it over 3 years. So the money's not going to be all there at once, and the earnings won't be there for a while. So I think we're going to need a couple of years of some bridge funding to subsidize those rents, so that the students that are really with the greatest needs are going to be served in those first couple of years. So that's my long-term objective, is to just make sure we have some expendable money for that. But we're not going to be able to source it from the opportunity fund, but perhaps the undesignated fund balance at some point, if that's necessary. We'll try to raise some of that money too, if we can, but the money that we're raising is really going into the endowment. So are there any questions about the year-to-date June 30th operating report? All right, I don't see all of you, but, and so, all right, so I'm going to segue then into the revised FY23 budget. All right. So this report, you'll see the 21-22 budget again. That was the approved budget. It was, you know, what's been happening the last few years is we bring a budget to you in May. It's really preliminary, and then we often come back and revise it like we're doing right now, because you approved a budget in May. That's the second column you're seeing here, the 2023 budget. That's what was approved in May, and the proposed revision is column 3. We're bringing it back to you because now we actually know what what the administrative fee will be based on the June 30th performance. So the revenue there will actually be $1,085,000. So a little less than what we had forecasted or assumed back in May. All the other revenue remains the same. We haven't adjusted any of that. So we did have to pull back on revenue a little bit there. But on the operation side, expenses, salaries. So we've done a couple things here. One, the budget you saw in May, we had calculated a 5.33% for COLA because that's what the state actually approved. But then the college negotiated a 4.44 with the district. So we always follow what the district does. So we just pulled back a bit there and recalculated the COLA for 4.44%, which is still really super generous. And then we've also got the constituent relations coordinator. That's the new coordinator that would come in, support me and support some of our other constituent relations work. We're not going to hire that person until January. We wanted to hire them before we moved into the new building, but now we're going to wait till we get there and make that hire afterwards. So those two adjustments brought down the employee salaries and the benefits there. We only have one more year of the ERI after this year, so that'll go away soon, which would be great. All the other supplies, materials, operations, expenses, all that, none of that changed from the budget you saw in May, so there's no adjustment there. But if you look at the bottom line, total expenses now is 1.4 million. So we have a slight deficit, forecasted deficit of $35,000, but it's an improvement over the budget you saw in May. And remember, there are a lot of one-time expenses in there. That $75,000 for capital outlay, that's for the furnishings for the new building. And then we have some money in here for some of the events that we're going to do to open and celebrate the new building. So those are one-time expenses, which is really what's leading to the forecasted deficit there. And so that's the, I'm not asking for your approval of this today because it'll go to the full board next week for approval. Any questions or comments there? All right. So I
But
want to
Jay,
stop.
Jay, I do have one question.
Yeah.
Would you want to have the ability to say next week that the budget and exec committee had given preliminary approval? Would you like that sort of, would that be, I
Yeah,
mean, to me,
I
that would
think-
be helpful as a
Yeah, I
board
think
member.
that would be helpful. Yeah.
Then
I mean,
move-
I didn't
move
put it
that we-
on the agenda as an action item, but we could certainly do that.
Well, you could certainly, we can certainly ask for sort of an informal vote of approval or support for this, which I would propose we do, so that you would be able to say, because if I, as I say, if I were a regular board member, I would like to know that the important committee, namely the budget committee, had blessed this.
Right, yeah, because I guess, because I forgot this is a combined budget and executive. So do you want, can we have a motion and?
I
We can
move,
vote on that.
that we support this proposal that Jay is putting forward.
I'll second that.
And any objection to that?
None.
All right, thank you so much. I'm going to pause here for a minute, though. I'll just stop sharing my screen for a moment. So the other part of this is that you'll see it on your agenda is the Bennett Estate unrestricted gift. So this is the Carol Anita Bennett estate. Chris, I believe you said you knew her or worked with her, and so a retiree. We got the check this week for $44,000. It's unrestricted. We don't get a lot of unrestricted bequests, but Carol, that was her giving pattern while she was alive. She gave unrestricted support. So we thought it'd be great because the foundation, we don't have an operating endowment. We thought we'd get one started with this unrestricted gift. I brought a policy to you at the May board meeting that would give the board discretion to, not just this gift, but any future gift that the board would have discretion to allocate up to $25,000 of an unrestricted donation for the foundation operations. And then the remainder of it would go into the operating endowment. I'm not recommending that today. I think I'd like to just put the entire $44,000 into this operating endowment and get it launched and started. But I'm glad that we have the policy in place now. But in this particular case, I don't think we need to allocate anything from the gift. So I did put this on as an action item. So if anyone's in support of that, if you could make a motion and then we'll take a vote.
So moved.
I'll second.
Oh,
Thank you. All in favor?
All right.
I,
Chris, anything else you want to say about, where did she work?
she worked in the old business office technology, which was separate from business administration. And then she was part of the combining of those two departments. So moved over and kept her faculty service area and continued teaching as a full-time faculty member. But, having the roots of the female heavy business office technology department and field, I just think it really reflects Carol that the lack of control over the gift she gave. I just think that's so her to say, here, and you can use it for whatever, and that it'll be used in an endowment for operations, which is pretty far down the spectrum from designated specialized gifts that often donors identify with. It's just very much Carol, where she clearly got the whole business model and the needs. So I think it's, I learned this phrase from Marge Milner. It's a great way to honor the gift.
That's great. I really thank you for sharing that, Chris. So we have an operating endowment.
Yay!
So you'll soon see another line item on the budget. There won't be a lot of revenue from it, but it'll be there. It's a start.
Yeah, got to start somewhere.
Let me ask you a question, just a personal question. If in my case, I have money that I have donated for a scholarship in our name, is it possible to change some of that money now? I don't remember how much I have in there, but it's grown over the years, whatever. So if there were, 25,000 in there, could I say I want to move 10,000 of it to this other? Can I change the designation? So I guess what I'm asking.
So money you've already given.
It's in an endowment for a scholarship. Can I go back and say that to be changed so that endowment is now half of it's over here for scholarship and the other half is in this operational thing?
Yes, you can change the purpose, but you cannot change the designation as endowment.
Right, but I could write, why do you write you? I mean, because personally, I'm obviously much more aware now than I was when I first gave the money of the needs of the foundation to raise money. I mean, I'm very supportive, obviously, of the foundation and the need we have for operational monies. And while we need scholarships for kids, we have a lot of scholarships that we have out there for the kids. Okay, so I just
well, and Shirley, I hope you don't mind me saying this, but Shirley, I've already worked with Shirley to update her estate plan, so she's similar to the conversation we're having right now. Shirley wanted to change the designated giving of her estate plan to something else. So we've already made that adjustment.
Well, it's just something we might want to mention, like at the board, because there could be others us who have given. I mean, you're not going to send a letter out to everybody who's got an endowed scholarship, but
yeah. All right. Well, if you don't mind me using you as an example, I won't give people the details, obviously, but.
Well, I'm gonna. You tell me you can tell me offline what I need to send you. You can draft me a letter that I would send you saying I want half of the money to be now designated for this other thing. Anyway.
Yeah.
Yes.
We'll talk about it. Okay.
Yeah. I think, if we can't raise, we have to raise money somehow, and that means we have to have a foundation ongoingly. So that needs money to operate. So.
All right, I'm going to share my screen again, and we're going to look at the strategic plan. So, Teresa, I don't remember now, but I sat down with Teresa and Susie recently. Well, before I went to Seattle, so it was a couple of weeks ago.
Right.
I just thought it was time to come back to the strategic plan. One, because we had extended it last year to include 2024, but we hadn't gone back to adjust the dates. And so a lot of this was just an exercise of updating the dates, shifting some of the deliverables, the timeline for some of these things. But we really thought it'd be a good time to go through it, line by line, and make whatever, because some of it, some adjustments have already been made. We just wanted to document it in this particular document here. So you're seeing the mission, vision, and core values. Nothing has changed there. Again, just the date at the top. And this is, by the way, I didn't send this out in advance, and I'm not going to send it to the board in advance. there's some potentially sensitive information here because there are some changes that we're proposing that we'll get to in a moment. I talked to Susie and Teresa about those. I talked to Chris about it yesterday. It involves the trust. So we'll get to that in a moment, but I just didn't want this document floating around until we've had an opportunity to have some important conversations. But I won't be bringing that. So consequently, I'm not going to bring this to the board next week because it's too soon. We're planning on bringing it to the full board in November, which allows us some additional time to have those other, conversations with other people that are going to be potentially impacted by this. All right, so the very first priority one, the philanthropic growth area, again, with just some minor adjustments here. The time, you'll see the timeline in particular is where most of the adjustments are. And this first section, establish a process to identify, evaluate, and communicate strategic funding priorities at SRJC. So our funding priorities are in place through 2024, but we have to start thinking about what is the next round of funding priorities. So that's what this is all about. So this year we're going to come up with an actual procedure to do that. We've been talking to other colleges about what they do, but we also have our new colleague Jeremy Smotherman he's kind of overseeing this area. He's doing strategic planning for the district now and is overseeing this area. And we're going to meet with him soon because he may be working on a process that will help us with this, help us identify funding priorities for the district. So it would be great if we could do that. And but we are going to have to identify what is our focus going to be beyond 2024. Mm-hmm. And then the second goal, establish annual fundraising plan. We've been doing that now since the beginning of this. We continue to do this. Tactic 2.5, you'll see we've just this is where we start to introduce this idea of not using just the word trust here, but we're working collaboratively with committees and councils and departments because it's broader than just the trust. We've been doing a lot of fundraising with many different constituents across the campus. So we wanted to broaden that here. So goal 3 is develop and strengthen our collaboration with our college colleagues to build a culture of philanthropy. This is obviously an ongoing process. And so we're just going to continue this work. The tactic 3.3, we broadened this. We just made a slight edit here to grow retiree giving with a focus on planned gifts, because that's where the real potential is with retiree giving. It's with planned giving. We're going to budget some actual money next year to do some marketing because planned giving is really a marketing program. I mean, you have to do a lot of marketing in order for it to be successful. Goal 4 was about establishing a discretionary fund to support the most pressing needs and emerging opportunities. So we've just changed all the language here to reflect the actual name of the fund. We established the Opportunity Fund. We developed funding for the Opportunity Fund, and then we've launched a grant-making program for that Opportunity Fund. There's about $93 or $9,800 left in the Opportunity Fund from the money that we had last year. And then priority area 2, which is our business model and structure, develop a revenue structure that sustains the foundation. We've finished that. I mean, we're implementing it now, but we developed the revenue structure, and we came up with the new 3% support fee. But that's definitely very, very much in play. We're going to be making the fee assessments quarterly. So we'll have the first one coming up in, well, I guess the end of September. So that's when we'll be making the first assessment of that. And then goal 2 was creating approaches for assessment, research, and analytics. A lot of that was our work with CCS fundraising in the beginning, but what we're looking at now is how to continue the analytics and research, how to build it into our day-to-day work. So we're looking at different databases. We are ready. We are so ready for a serious CRM program here to manage all of our help us manage our relationships, our outreach, our reporting. I mean, we really need a system. And so we're beginning to look into that. Goal 3 was about reviewing and revising the investment policy, which has been done. The ESG strategy has been implemented. So now it's just a matter of monitoring the impact of that. And then priority area 3, which is all marketing and communications. We wanted to simplify this. You'll see goal number 2. We decided that really what we're talking about here is developing a strategy and implementing an annual communications and marketing calendar. We're at the point now where we have so much going on. We just need that calendar from month to month, and that says what we're communicating when and through what channel, so that we're not bumping into each other. And I think last week we had like 3 different communications that went out at once, and that drives me crazy because we really need to spread those things out and make sure that we, otherwise if you don't have a plan, then you're just kind of doing it on the cuff, and you can run into some difficulties there. So obviously goal 1 was the rebranding. That was one of the first things we did. That's worked out really well. And then priority area 4 is governance. And goal 1 is about the board of directors, ensuring that the board's diverse, engaged, informed, and enthused about supporting the mission. So we haven't had to bring, other than bringing on Carrie and Marion. Was that last year? We oriented them, and but we haven't had to. We'll have this coming year. We'll have 1 board member rotating off, kind of completing their 3rd 3-year term. So we'll have 1 more person potentially to bring onto the board. And then this is the next area. So this is the area I really wanted to dig into today. So it involves the trust, guiding and partnering with the auxiliary trusts. So as you know, we developed this MOU last year. All of the groups have signed it except for BCAT. Chris has worked really hard with them to bring them along there, and they have it, and they just haven't signed it and returned it to me at this point. But in addition to that, I've been talking to the deans and to Dr. Chong about this. Now that I've been here for as long as I have, I can see the amount of work that goes into governing the trust. And we really want to simplify this. It's always been a concern to me that, 1, they were called trust, because to me, a trust is a separately incorporated legal entity. And so I don't know where that name came from. So they're standing committees of the foundation right now. And I would like them to no longer be standing committees, because 1, I'm really concerned that we're not always in compliance with the Brown Act. So there is some liability there. I want to remove that. So I'd love for these entities to not be standing committees. They would instead, they would be ad hoc event committees, because really what we're doing with these groups is we're putting on an event for them. We're helping them produce an event to raise money. But in addition to that, there's a ton of work that's been going in trying to govern these groups, and they tend to try to govern themselves as if they're separate boards and separate entities. So a lot of work and energy goes into that. The deans put a ton of time into this, and we do as well. So I wanted to just remove all of that and just help them become more focused on what they do best, which is the event. So we're using the word reinvent right now, but it's really just changing the way we govern the trust, so that they're generating 1 signature event each year, but they're not worrying about recruiting new members and succession planning and agendas and minutes. And Petaluma meets every month. And it's just, if I added up the amount of hours I've spent going to those meetings, prepping for those meetings, it's a lot of time. And to be honest, I'll say this here, but with not a lot of return, right? If we really did an analysis of what we put into these groups and how much we're getting from that, we're actually losing a lot of money, because we never put in my time and the dean's time and everybody else's time. And if you did that, we would actually see that we're losing money. But these are important groups for community engagement, and it just that exposure for the for whether it's athletics or Petaluma. So we want them to continue to do the event fundraising. We did learn through COVID, though, that just if we just focus on good old-fashioned fundraising, we could actually raise quite a lot of money, and we didn't really need the events. So we're just downplaying the importance of the events here and say we want to continue to do them, but we really want to invest more energy into fundraising. The major gift work that I've been doing, mostly at Schoen Farm, some in Petaluma, and actually some with athletics, working with the coaches. So I think folks have seen that fundraising happening, because historically, I think the trusts were created. The foundation may not have been supporting these areas as much, and there was a need to create these groups to raise some money through an annual event, and there was a reliance on that revenue from the events. And there's just a kind of a smaller need for that at this time. So that's a lot. And Chris, I appreciate. I know we had a great conversation about this yesterday, but I just opened it up for. I'm going to stop sharing now because that's really the.
Yeah.
So Jay, what's the reaction?
Oh, I'm sorry.
What was that?
I'll just share that I think it makes sense, Jay. If we quantify the people hours that go into, as you say, governance of these groups and the way that has been struggling. I mean, we've had some struggling with BCAT, that the website isn't current, the bylaws and handbooks aren't out there and being circulated. It's just so much work. And if we take those people hours and put them towards the events and let go of the rest and concentrate more on events and fundraising, it makes sense. It's how to get the groups there. I can only speak for BCAT because I'm not involved with the Ag Trust or Friends of Petaluma. It's a big part of their identity. And so it's going to involve that control issue that I mentioned earlier, of getting people to let go without ruffling feathers too deeply, that they still feel important and connected to the college. But it does make sense. And it's been a struggle to keep the group structured the way it is. And I don't know if people are ready to really face that, but it's probably time.
My concern is sort of similar, I guess, involved with any of them, but what's the reaction going to be when you go to the people who run the Ag Trust and et cetera, and say, you're not going to be a trust anymore, you're going to be an advisory council? Or, I'm just concerned about the reaction of those folks that are pretty much invested in those groups. I don't disagree with what you want to do. I'm not saying that. I'm just wondering about how are you going to get their buy-in, and is there some concern or?
Well, I think that's one of the big concerns, is that because, unfortunately, we don't have the time to get the full, to go around and get all the buy. It's just it's going to be something that, we're going to communicate to certain folks up front, obviously the leadership of these groups, and we'll probably have to do a follow-up meeting with the groups themselves, but we don't have months to invest in getting the buy-in on this. So it's just going to be, this is the change that we're making. And I have to say, there's a lot of frustration. Petaluma is, even though they've done great on the sponsorships for the event this year, there's like 2 people that come to the meetings, and all the other people on the committee, like the friends, they're not doing anything. They don't come to the meetings. And there's a lot of frustration with that. And we had nearly closed down BCAT earlier because there was no one wanted to step up to lead it. And then finally somebody did, but I was talking to Matt Markovich about this. And by the way, I've been talking to the 3 deans are very much in favor of this, because they are putting a ton of time into it. And they have so many other things on their plate. It's amazing. So a lot of this would be how we present it. We want to simplify this. And if you really break it down, we're still doing the event. We're going to work with an event committee, but we're not going to put all the energy to try to help these groups run as if they're independent boards. They're not.
But
They're more
Can you
advisory.
well, can you use part of your discussion? You mentioned earlier that they are, quote, standing committees of the foundation now, in the whole Brown Act thing, that it makes sense for you to change. I'm just thinking about, you're talking to the Ag Trust people now, and you're telling them you're not going to be the Ag Trust anymore. What are you going to be? I mean, if I'm one of those people and I'm really invested in this, I'm going to be the Ag Advisory Committee, or what am I going to
Well,
be now?
the name we would propose is, it would be the Ag Council, the Petaluma Campus Council, the Bearcat Athletic Council.
It seems to me that if you position it correctly and you get buy-in from a couple of key people with each of the trusts, what you're doing is the things that are important to them, raising money and maintaining visibility for their programs, will remain in place. And the administrative sort of workload and structure that probably none of them, I mean, some of them may get some psychic satisfaction and, they can still meet, but they're not going to have the sort of administrative burden associated with the meetings and the Brown Act and all of that. Seems like you could build a pretty compelling case as to why it's good for everybody, and the benefits that they are primarily interested in are going to remain.
Yeah.
And let them take that back to their group. But I think it's a fine idea.
Do we still charge them 5% of their revenue to do their event or whatever? Because they were unhappy about that for a while.
No, we stopped doing that when I arrived because I just wanted to assess all that. But they are part of the 3% now. So whenever they do an event or when a contribution comes in, it will be assessed 3%.
I think using the fact that, we're concerned about the administrative and the time that's going into some of the meetings, and the fact that they're probably not following the Brown Act, which could get everybody, into trouble, makes it so logical that we change it to this other thing that we're calling it now a council.
Yeah.
And if I'm one of those people, I guess I could still tell my friends I'm on the Ag Council. And the purpose of the Ag Council is to have fundraising events to raise money for agriculture. Would that be the right thing for me to say if I'm one of these people?
Yeah, we would have like for Ag, we'd have the Ag Council, and we would draw from that council to create the event committee. But but you wouldn't have to be on the Ag Council to be on the event committee. It's, that, and the event committee could change from year to year. And it should, because people get burnt out. And
was the Ag Council, I'm going to play like I'm one of those people. Is the Ag Council going to meet? I mean, I don't quite understand. Will I still have a meeting?
So yeah, it's a good, so basically the trust would no longer be standing committees of the foundation. So these councils would then still be under the purview of the deans, and we would recommend that they, get them together at least once a year, or a couple times a year, give them an update, and that's where you recruit people to join the event committee, and you'd still utilize them in that way. And I personally would still have coffee with one or two of them periodically to, get their ideas about prospects and things like that. I mean, we'd still utilize them the same way we are. We're just not having monthly. I mean, the Ag Trust only meets quarterly, but Petaluma meets every month. And I'm not sure how often BCAT meets, but.
The EC meets monthly, the general group meets 5 times a year, but they didn't meet as often during COVID.
Yeah.
And we can
Who's
still
over-
come
who's the
to
dean?
board meetings and report, which they tend not to do even now.
Right.
And
That's
who's
a good
over
point.
who's over the Petaluma Friends group? What dean?
So that's Matthew Long. Yeah,
And he's the
Matthew
dean of
Long.
What?
Matthew Long's the dean of Petaluma, the executive dean of Petaluma campus.
Oh.
Speaking of Petaluma, I'm planning to attend the dinner. Is there someplace on the website where I sign up and pay for that?
Yes.
Okay.
Let me send you the link for that, Steve.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we're meeting
So-
yesterday, and there are 5 board members actually going to, which is great. It's great to have that
And-
many.
Okay, but back to this. Okay, so they are an advisory council of the college, not of, they're not, these advisory councils are under the deans of these various 3 areas. They had nothing to do with the foundation anymore. Is that a true statement?
Correct. I mean, but I would still, like, I might still utilize, like Carol Ann Labarre is an example, and she's been trying to get off Petaluma now for a while, but I still have coffee with her periodically. We talk about prospects, but I do that with anybody. They don't have to be on a council or.
Right. It's just,
Yeah.
but I mean, what I'm trying to understand is when you're going to talk to these people, nobody comes to our board meetings anymore. And I mean, from these groups, and they're just not, so there is no, you're doing away with these trusts, the foundation standing committee trusts, period.
Right.
And instead you're going to transition this to an advisory council under the dean of whatever, ag, or whatever the story is. Is that right? Am I correct in what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Chris.
Just want to comment on that. I think, and I'm just speaking for BCAT because I know the players. I don't have the words. I don't want to put on the athletic director's shoulders some tie-in or responsibility to an advisory council through this change. You know, you made the statement, Matt, that, you know, the deans shouldn't be beholden to some advisory council. It's not part of their job description or reporting structure. So I think advisory is a good term, but you know, the funds are still held by the foundation. The events will still flow through the foundation for support. So to say it's no longer a trust and you're now an advisory council to the dean, I think that's something that we need to frankly consult with HR about with the college if we're shifting it over to the college side. Because I think that dynamic with the deans could be very awkward.
Maybe you shouldn't call it an advisory council. It sounds like they're advising the deans. Maybe there's a different word than they're going to be an advisory body, or they're going to be they're going to be a business council. You know, they have these don't they have these business councils for all kinds of the business programs that we have? You know, they meet annually or something.
There's lots of advisory councils. Yeah.
And committees. A lot
Yeah,
of our trade tech curricular areas have advisory committees with.
And they're business people who come in and work with those CTE kind of program people.
Right.
But
Right.
something you can make it kind of like that.
Yeah. Kate?
No, that won't work because those are about instruction and there's faculty advisors associated with them. There's reassigned time allocated to those faculty advisors. There's a whole structure associated with that.
Yeah.
So that's not this. And if we're going to put this into the district, Jay, we need to figure out where does it fit within the shared governance bodies.
Uh-huh.
And that needs to go to college council. These can't just move over to the district and not fit within the district structure in some way. An advisory committee is advisory to the president. There's no other advisory committees within the district. So this isn't going to work in the way that it's currently rolling out as an advisory committee on the district side of things. That needs more discussion.
Couldn't we, as the foundation, create something that is less formal, that is a support council or something that sits under the umbrella of the foundation that meets, reports to the foundation? Because the idea is to support that segment of the foundation's work, which is raise money, create visibility for these 3 groups. It seems to me that you could come up with a name that doesn't compel you to bring it under the into the college structure and
Right.
an informal non-Brown Act, whether you call it a support council or something.
I like support work, agricultural support council or committee, even a committee, I mean, of the board. Or is that a problem, Jay, if it's a committee, agricultural support network?
Kate is,
So, so in order to get out, so I've been doing a lot of work around the Brown Act as we redesign shared governance on the district side. So in order to not be subject to the Brown Act, this body cannot make recommendations directly to the board. So I think we need to take a step back and figure out what is the function and where will it report to? Because that's question number one, is who is it advisory to? We can call it whatever we want. It doesn't have to have advisory in it. It cannot be a part of the district structure without more conversation. It will not happen next week, Jay, because we would have to take that to college council. It would have to go through, it would basically get locked up into the shared governance redesign we're currently working on.
It sounds like we
So
need to tell Jay to go back and do a little more homework on what exactly we should do before we present this as something to our full board.
I think,
Well,
but I think
they could remain advisory councils to the foundation. It doesn't matter where, it could stay here. We can't call them committees because I don't want them to be standing committees anymore, because that's where we have to, they have to perform a certain way. We have to have all the, and we spend so much time trying to track them down to get their agendas and all the Brown Act stuff that it's just.
But if they were a council, they wouldn't have to do that. You could just call it an advisory council, agriculture advisory council.
it seems that we have
So
agreement on what the objective is,
Yes.
and that maybe some more research needs to be done on how to navigate the legalities and what they're called and who they report to.
Yeah.
And because the objective is to take them out of the Brown Act, to put them in a position where they can do what their primary goal is, which is to raise money and visibility. And it seems to me, I would hope that there's a way to legally do that, but I don't think we have all the information we need to set it up right now.
Yeah, and I think it's also to alleviate the foundation of all the oversight of
Right.
them, because they have bylaws and executive committees. They have so much organizational structure within themselves, which is, I think, too much. And so to remove that, and I thought we talked about them becoming an ad hoc. We transitioned them from a standing committee to an ad hoc committee under the foundation umbrella, and they only come together a couple times a year, if that much, to work
to
on.
accomplish. Yeah.
And that's right. I didn't envision them going under the district at all. I thought they would still stay, but as an ad hoc committee, they would just get added to the other ad hoc committees that we have. And I don't think the ad hoc committees,
I don't like them being ad hoc, just because, I mean, to me, the ad hoc committees meet when a need is there. And I think they are an advisory or a support council or something. I would feel good if I was in the agricultural support council, and I can report to the, support council can be part of the foundation, but it's just a little thing over here on the side, whatever.
But I think one of the keys here, and Kate was, mentioned this just a minute ago, and this is something that's also kind of bothered me from the beginning, is that, because they raised this money, they also feel like they have say in how it's spent. And the deans literally have to go to the trust to get approval to spend that money. And it drives the deans crazy. And so we'd have to remove that. Like, we can agree on what the money that we raise is going to be used for, but then you can't control it after, you can't, they expect so much from the deans to make sure that every little penny is accounted for a certain way. And that's the other part, with just a lot of work to report back on $20,000 and how it was used. And yes, we need to report back, but the deans shouldn't have to go, on their hands and knees to the trust saying, can I spend $5,000 or $500 of this for this?
So we need to write the rules because this is a new organization that we're creating. We're doing away with the trust. We're creating this new thing, whatever we're going to call it. And here's the function of it. And here's the approvals that this is the way it operates. And you need to write up some description of that, I think, for us.
It seems to me the cake is not fully baked here. we know what we're trying to accomplish, but we
Mhm.
need to finesse the
Mhm.
details more.
But we're very close.
Yeah, and what we don't want to do is ruffle feathers so much that the groups say, fine, we're just going to go out and establish our own nonprofit, that we're not going to buy into this new structure. We still want to keep it all in-house within the JC. I mean, we all know that the foundation is the nonprofit and there isn't going to be another one associated with the college. But, you know, I think we need to spend some work on it before we take it out to the groups and say, you know, this is what we want to change to for these reasons.
And tonight, I think this is very, very important topic. And even though this exec committee only usually meets, you know, every other month or whatever, if we need to have a special meeting to review all this, I think, I mean, I'm certainly willing to put that time in.
Yeah.
Because I mean, this is a really, we need to get this thing done, and I don't want to have to keep waiting for 2 more months for this committee to meet. We need to, if we need to have another special meeting
Yeah.
so that we can look at this one more time. And then I don't know whether we have to take it to the board or don't take it to the board or whatever the story is, but
Yeah, I was planning on bringing these edits to the board in November.
oh, okay. Well, we have time to then
Yeah,
you're not
so we
doing
can
it
have some
with,
meetings before that.
okay, but
I
I just think we need to perhaps have an ad hoc committee. I think we need to
Yeah.
meet again, maybe as a group here to have some more discussion on it, and certainly have Chris there because of her knowledge. So the exec committee could meet and kind of see where are we on this, because I think this is very important for all the reasons Chris was just saying too.
Kate, was there anything else you were gonna say or? No, I did reach out to Erin. I haven't heard back from her, so I wanted to talk to the attorney about it just to see what she would say about this.
Okay, so
Feel free to reach out to me.
you'll do
Since
some
I've
more
been
work,
doing all
Jay,
the
and then
work.
get us back together as needed to
Yeah,
massage it again a little bit. We won't bring it up next
Yeah.
week at the board.
okay, great.
Good discussion.
Right. So the next thing on your agenda, it actually says scholarship update. There's really not much of an update. We continue to work with the scholarship office. We have some meetings that we need to schedule with some of the departments that were, you know, vocal in the spring. There's the policy that you all approved in May, which is going to be very helpful because we're going to go into these meetings and share that policy with people, walk them through it, talk about some of the things, the adjustments we've made, where we've, you know, where we listened and we heard certain things, and now we're reflecting that back to them and some of the changes that we've made. But it's still going to be, you know, I think we're going to continue to get some pushback. So we're just preparing for those meetings. We have a meeting with scholarship next week because one of the things we've been saying is that we're going to start providing training to everyone so that we don't, you know, because each group has kind of gone off and created their own evaluation tools and their own metric, you know, their own rubric and things like that. So we want to standardize that so everyone's using the same one. So we have to meet and talk about what that training's what it looks like and all that. And then we can go out and start having some of these conversations. So that's just a quick update. I wanted to add something. Yeah, Chris.
Well, and this is, in looking at the financials today, I don't expect an answer. I just want to throw it out there. There's quite a balance in the Doyle Reserve Fund, and there's quite a balance in the Doyle Fund. And I'm wondering if there's work happening to come up with plans to get those funds to students. So I'll just throw it out there on the fishing expedition today, but it's the numbers are quite large. So I think that it falls under the purview of the finances of the foundation to come up with a plan for those.
Okay.
And that silenced the group.
Well, I'll have to talk to Kate about this too, because
Yeah.
I've been wondering about this myself in terms of like what is the appropriate amount of reserve or to have there. And just kind of like our reserve funds for the foundation, what's appropriate to have there. I wasn't here during the bridge the Doyle and all, the needs at that time. So we just have to make sure that we have enough money there for the, another event like that can occur.
Yep. I was.
All right. I did have one other thing I wanted to add. I just didn't get it. I'm going to share my screen again with you for a minute. So the funding priorities, continue to fine tune this. I'm going to bring this to the board next week for approval. But what you're looking at is, as you know, it's continued to grow over time because as we've identified new program like fire technology was recently added. And so the change that I'm bringing to you today is if you look down at student success, that's the money we've been reflecting there is largely scholarship money. But we have been raising money recently for what we consider other student success programs, like our HOPE program. The HOPE program is our healthcare occupations program. There's a lot of programs like that at the college that are really all about student success in particular areas. But that's one in particular where we've been raising a good sum of money. We raised over $1 million recently there, and there's still some other gifts coming in. So we wanted to reflect that money here as well. So we've adjusted some of the numbers a little bit. We've increased the goal because we're going to be counting this other money. We've increased the goal. It was 3 million. We've increased it to 6 million. So I'm proposing that the total goal now is 15. It was 12 in the last version of this. And then you can see what it looks like in terms of what was raised in 2021, 21, 22, and then the total so far. Because there's $1 million, I mentioned $1 million were raised for HOPE recently. That's not reflected here yet. It's not going to show up until FY23. So there's $1 million that's already there that's been raised. Thus the increase in the goal and the increase in the goal overall. Any questions about that?
Makes sense.
Just want to say, I think you're doing a great job. We started out with 5 priorities and then it grew to 7 and now it's grown to 9. And then you've raised some of the levels of the amount to be raised and you keep raising money. So I'd like to tip my hat to you and Sarah and Brianne because y'all have been working hard.
Yeah, I think this is it. I think this is kind of, we reached our threshold, but, and obviously, Rosalind's not on here. There are other things that are, definitely going to show up in our next group of funding priorities, but, and there's some things on here that are on, like the Construction Trade Center. It's been on hold. We're actually hoping to go out. We're planning to go out to bid, I think this month. So that's going to be back on track, and there's a lot of meetings happening internally about the academic programs that will be offered there. And so these things kind of, we're still waiting to actually launch fire technology because they're just, the materials are being developed, and also the actual need is being developed there still. So, and then you probably have seen recently a communication from Sarah about tours of the new STEM building. I think there's 5 of those. They're filled up pretty fast. I think we've got some good prospects coming to that. There was a really good visit that Sarah had recently with folks from Keysight. So there's a lot happening. I just got another $150,000 for the housing endowment and another 25,000 recently. So those numbers aren't reflected in here either because they're all going to be FY23. So we're working on our written reports for the board, and you'll see some of those numbers reflected in the written report that will be sent out for the board meeting next week.
I think it's pretty impressive that it's almost halfway there. You've increased the number and almost half of it's raised. So that's really well.
Yeah,
exciting.
and the student success area, I mean, that scholarship money, we raise over $1 million a year for scholarships. So anyway, we're confident about it. I just wanted to continue to give you the update on it. And it's not all, we still raise money for other things too. It's not all that we're doing, but it's definitely where we focus most of our energy. So next week at the board meeting, it's basically the same agenda. We're going to go through all the same materials. Kate, we'll just have your written report for the statements. I won't have you go through it at the meeting. But I will go over the year-to-date operating budget because of the whole, surplus issue, the opportunity fund piece. But it'll we're not going to have an outside presenter since, it's basically the same agenda.
I will be in a big aluminum tube on my way to Texas, so I'd be sorry to miss it.
Okay, we will have the investment folks come to the November meeting though. So any other business? Oh, I wanted to show you one other thing. Share my screen again.
Oh, nice.
Was that the sign?
That's the scoreboard.
Wow.
Right, the scoreboard.
Those are not that's not our mascot though. There it is. The foundation is along the bottom because remember that was one of the big reasons why we wanted to underwrite this is for that naming opportunity right there that's going to be there for a long, long time. And Matt said they're getting trained. They hope they're ready to go for the game tomorrow, but they're getting trained on it. But it should be interesting. I had planned on going to the game, and now I'm actually having dinner with those donors that just gave $150,000 to the housing endowment. But I don't know if anybody else will have a chance to be out there. But
What time is it?
It's at 5 o'clock. All the home games are at 5. We're playing. Is it?
I think that was a great, meaningful expenditure of that $125,000 that was sitting in our unrestricted fund.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah, and there it is. So the other thing I just wanted to remind you is that next week, before the board meeting, we will tour you through our new building. For those of you, you have a separate Outlook invitation for that. Not everyone's able to make it, but we look forward to showing you the building. And I'm looking forward to going back because there's just a lot of progress. Now they're putting up the outside skin on the building, and it'll be fun to just walk through it with all of you. And the staff is joining us, so because many of them haven't been able to see it yet.
Do we park right there at the building? At the Elliott building?
Park where you normally park, like, because the meeting's in Bertolini, so I would park, in that vicinity, and then it's just down the street, walk down the street, so that your car is going to be closer to where we end up at, rather than where you begin.
Okay, so, all right, so park closer to Bertolini, because we're going to be in that little private room that we enter on the roundabout.
Yeah, right. So I would park. So the Burbank Circle, you might find some parking along there in the front, because that's right along where that the
Yeah, yeah.
Senate chambers is right along there on the far end of the.
And then
Burbank.
your building is how far down Elliott Street? Like halfway or?
It's about half, well, a little more than halfway, but it's just beyond the Jeff Cundy Hall.
Okay,
Yeah, so I'm going to send out, I'll send you out the information about that today when I send out the agenda for the board meeting.
yeah, okay, that'll be good. You might tell everybody kind of where to park and just what you just said
Yeah.
to us.
I'll give you all a map again and all of that.
Okay, good. Super.
All
Well,
right.
good meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Right.
Okay, so
Coming.
Bye-bye.
Bye.